I want to talk to you about how to keep things clean. Because over time, what happens is that things build up, and it's hard to want to go and feel passionate when you're frustrated, or there are things that you haven't really talked about, or little nicks and scrapes in the relationship that you guys haven't talked about. And I'm going to give you this distinction. And I told you in the beginning, I come up with very weird distinctions, but I think you'll get it when you understand this. So I have 4 kids, and when they were little, they would get into my bathtub. Let me explain. At the end of my day, after seeing clients all day long, I had this ritual. I had this beautiful bathtub, and I would spend all this money on beautiful bubbles because it mattered to me. And before I would go and engage with the rest of the family, I would have this idea that I would come in and I would take this fabulous bath, and I would have candles, and the bubbles would smell good, and the lights were dimmed, and I could hear the crackling, and the temperature was perfect. And I really worked hard to make the bath perfect. And ultimately, they would come in, and mommy, and especially the boys, and they had this plastic bin, and it had all of their cars, like the Hot Wheel cars, and they would come in and they would dump the bin into the bathtub, like they were gonna play with the cars and all the bath toys, and all of a sudden they'd drop their clothes and everybody would climb in, and I would kind of scooch. And when these little boys, at 3 years old, would hit the water, and little girls too, but the boys were easier to tell, they would pee. They'd hit the warm water, and they would pee. And I would have this moment of, can I ignore this? It's perfect. I just want to be in my bathtub. And I would think about it for a second, and I would be like, no, it ruins it. It ruins the bath water. We'd have to get out, we'd have to take the toys out, we'd have to take all the water out and refill the tub. And the reason I'm telling you this is that over time, relationships build up pee. I call it pee in the bath water. And it's absolutely normal. We have pee in the bath water with our friends, with our parents. It's just over time, it accumulates. Those little teeny things that we don't feel the need to talk about, we don't want the conflict, we think it's us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it feels big or small or silly. Ultimately, over time, pee builds up in the bath water, and the bath is not the same experience. So, the very first thing I'm gonna have you do is pay attention to what is the pee in your bath water, because it's really hard to enjoy, and I want you to think about this in terms of great sex or intimacy or passion. It's hard to enjoy when you know what you're sitting in. Even if you guys don't talk about it, you know that you're sitting in it, right? So I'm gonna ask you to really think about and talk to your partner about what is the pee in your bath water. Now here's the trick to this. You're not allowed to punish. Everybody is triggered or hurt or wounded or uncomfortable about whatever it is that they are. These are the first rules. That if you're going to really impact the relationship, it has to be okay for people to feel what they feel without, your ego being hurt. Now, if your ego is hurt, it's something else that we can talk about, because there are ways to clean that up as well. But initially, I want you to start looking at what the mess is, because it's almost like, if you have cars in your driveway, nothing new will come in. No new cars can be there. If you have shit in the space, there's no room for anything new. So I really want you to think about the little things that you guys have been ignoring, that you haven't been talking about, and I want you to clean it up. And by the way, I would say that this is probably something that you should be doing even once a month. I call it a state of the union, literally a state of our union, where you guys have this ritual, whether you go to the beach, whether you go have a glass of wine, and you check in and say, okay, so where is the state of our union? Where are we? What haven't we talked about? Oh, well, you know what? I asked you to take the kids to soccer and you didn't do it, and I felt very frustrated, and blah, blah, blah. So whatever that is, I want you guys learning how to clean up the pee in your bath water. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about are needs. Now, we're really good at putting our needs onto somebody else. I need you to do this for me. It turns me on when you do that. I don't like it. I'm turned off when you do that. But that kind of takes you out of the equation. Instead of saying, I am aroused by, I am excited I get into an excited space when so let me explain what I'm talking about. So if you are feeling flat, if you're feeling dead inside, if you're feeling tired and exhausted and old and frustrated and overwhelmed and all the things that you're feeling, if you feel distant, there is no amount of chocolate for Valentine's Day or flowers or that he or she can do for you that is going to bring you alive. This is really your job, right? To figure out what it is that you need to be doing. If it's body image, if you don't feel sexy because you don't like the way you look, which is really common. Not a lot of people love the way they look, especially with the lights on. Then it's something that you really need to be able to address. And I'm not saying that you have to, have a six-pack and a tight ass or what. You can have whatever you want, but it has to be something that you are really aware of where you went flat. So at one point in the relationship, right in the beginning, usually first 6 months, things felt like electric, and all of those things you almost didn't even think about, right? Or even thought was sexy, the belly or the whatever it was, you found sexy in each other. And over time, you felt or she felt or he felt themselves kind of withdraw from and blamed the other partner for, right? So first I'm going to talk about taking personal responsibility for yourself. What is it that turns you on that you have control over, right? The next is, and people hate this and I understand, but asking to have your needs met. Feeling worthy of love, feeling worthy of being cared for, feeling worthy of asking to have your needs met and being made love to, or being swept off your feet. Those are things that you have control over. People can't read your mind. I have a lot of clients, especially female clients, by the way, who maybe have never had an orgasm or don't have many orgasms, that really kind of blame their partner, like he just doesn't do it for me or she just doesn't do it for me. But the reality is, if you're not doing it for yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. So I'm going to ask that you start to pay attention to what your role is in terms of being able to engage in the relationship, being able to engage in the love parts, being able to engage in the romance and the sex parts, because you're in charge of that. Like, you have the wheel on that. So instead of just sort of handing the wheel over and hoping that they'll drive, this is where you get to take over. So whether it's at, you feel sexy when you are exercising, you feel sexy when you are doing well at, school or work or whatever it is, it's important that you are putting yourself in the position of feeling alive, right? Because if you're dead, if you're flat, there's nobody at the door, nobody's going to answer, right? So that's the first thing. On the flip side of that, and is asking to have your needs met. And I kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you don't really know what your needs are, if you're going by what you see in porn or by what your girlfriends or your guy friends or what people are saying to you, because we're all different, right? So actually really truly knowing. This is a hard one because and John Gottman did this beautiful, John Gottman out of the Gottman Institute. He's one of my favorites, but he did love languages and stuff. And the idea of love languages is that we are all moved and touched by different things. And so if you're needing acts of kindness, if you're needing warmth, if you're needing compliments, or you're somebody who's really affectionate and you're kind of testing your partner, waiting for them to do it, then it likely won't happen, right? Not unless you're willing to ask for what you need. So if what you need is to be affirmed, like you've worked all day and you walk through the door and you want to be acknowledged, like man, it's been a hard day and I'm really excited to see you, and you're met with a hug and a kiss, then that's kind of on you to be able to let them know that that's something that you want, instead of setting your partner up to fail, like I'll wait and see if she's gonna do it, or I'll wait and see if he's gonna do it. So having your needs met is both your job and their job, but only in terms of the part that you're willing to tell them. I have a lot of couples that will argue. This is so common, right? You're not hearing me, as if there's one job and that's for the person that's being communicated to get it. But the truth is that the communicator is almost more responsible, because if they're not getting it, then you might want to think about how you're communicating it rather than beating somebody up for not getting it. Does that make sense? So think about when you're trying to explain something to a child, right? If they're not getting it, we say it 3 different ways, right? And I'm not saying out of frustration that you say it 3 ways, but we say it 3 different ways, hoping, and you can kind of see when the light goes off, in a way that's non-intimidating and non-threatening. So I'm going to give you a story. I'm going to give you an example, and it's going to lead me into my next conversation about empathy and accepting warts. I call them warts. That doesn't sound right when I'm talking about a sex class, but you'll know what I mean. So I had this couple who came to me, and they were very excited to explore something new. They wanted to have a threesome. Lots and lots and lots of couples fantasize about what it would be like to have a threesome. And some enjoy doing it and some don't. This couple in particular, they were really excited about trying it, except that she had had a lot of abuse in the past. She'd had a lot of rejection. She'd been with a lot of assholes in the past. And so there were safety issues, there were trust issues. And so it didn't feel like something that she could really, truly do. But, you know, when they were making love and they were kind of in that fantasy world, it was really exciting to talk about. He experienced a lot of frustration because he took that as something that we could possibly do, and what was stopping her. So he would get mad and she would apologize and all of this stuff. She had trust issues so much that, you know, when he would go to work, she'd check his computer and she'd go through his phone, and she would, you know, she didn't want to lose him. She didn't want to be rejected. She didn't want loss. And he would get really angry at her. Rah, rah. And so she would apologize. I'm sorry. But it wasn't something that was stopping. So we tried an experiment. Let's try this experiment. For 1 month, I want you guys to do something very different. When she gets insecure, when she gets scared, I don't care how silly it sounds, I want you to wrap your arms around her and tell her that she's safe, that she belongs, that you're not going anywhere. No matter what. Whatever she feels, rational or irrational, I want you to let her know that she's safe. So they tried this for a month, and they went through all of these things, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to get frustrated with her, and, you know, he wanted to get frustrated with her, but they did it until near the end of the month. They ended up going to the movies, and they got there a little bit early, and they had their popcorn, and they had their sodas, and they were sitting there, and the lights were still on, and down the aisle walks this blonde with these beautiful breasts, and normally what they would do is he would look, and then she would look to see if he's looking, and then he would do this look away thing, and then they would have this really awkward, tense moment because she knew he was looking, and, you know, it was this very tense moment. But what she had realized was that when she felt safe enough, like she wasn't going to be reprimanded, she noticed how beautiful this woman's breasts were, and had this, like, you know, long couple seconds of where she admired her before she turned and looked at him. What am I talking about? What I'm talking about, no different than what I was talking about in the lesson before, that when somebody feels safe, when they feel safe to be flawed, when they feel safe to fear loss, or when they feel safe in the world, like I was talking about the child that could go out into the world and come back, when they feel safe, all of a sudden, they don't have to have up all of those defenses. And when those defenses can be dropped and you still get to be flawed, you have all this room to explore. So this couple ended up getting to have their threesome. They had a really good time. She got to put the boundaries on it. She got to make the rules on it and be in control of it, which provided a sense of strength and safety for her. And they had a really wonderful time. That was how they wanted to explore that. But the point of all of this conversation is that in order for you to take the relationship to the next level, there has to be an acceptance of your humanity. There has to be an acceptance of your flaws and the safety to be able to explore in spite of them, which will lead me into my next chapter.